Chronically hyperaroused dogs are like dogs with an anxiety disorder with a different underlying emotion. So when we're talking about dysregulated dogs, specifically dogs with anxiety disorders, hyperarousal disorders, trauma disorders, the thing that these dogs have in common is that their baseline stress levels are higher than ideal. So if a healthy nervous system, assuming you are actually in a safe environment, baselines in the green, these dogs are baselining in at least the yellow. And so their most relaxed is the yellow zone, sometimes higher. For the dog with the anxiety disorder, we're probably primarily seeing anxiety and fear as the emotion underneath those high stress levels. For a dog with a hyperarousal disorder, it's usually less fear and anxiety and more frustration, overwhelm, overstimulation. Although you have to be careful because there's nothing saying that a dog who's experiencing chronic hyperarousal can't also feel fear or anxiety in particular contexts. I think this can feel like a really different thing because it feels like hyperaroused dogs are dogs that are just too excited. And that sets us up to feel like the dog is having a good time, which can make it feel like our management is going to be different. But the trick is that these dogs are not having a good time. They are overwhelmed, overstimulated, frustrated. They have more sympathetic nervous system activation than not. They are closer to fight or flight than they are to rest and digest. And just like for a dog with an anxiety disorder, this is not fun. And those levels of stress are unhealthy for them behaviorally, but also mentally, emotionally, and physically. So just like for a dog with an anxiety disorder, we want to look at where the dog is coming out of their green zone. Where are we seeing them spike up the stress scale? We want to manage the environment around those triggers. Just like for a dog with an anxiety disorder, we want to look at health. We want to look at sleep. We want to make sure that enrichment needs are being satiated appropriately. It's very, very common for dysregulated dogs in general, but especially hyperaroused dogs, to be mistaken for dogs who need more exercise. But these dogs are exhausted. So hyperaroused dogs are often misunderstood. Dysregulated dogs are in general, but especially the hyperaroused dogs, in terms of what they're feeling emotionally, right? We think they're having a good time. They're not. We also assume because these dogs tend to be very active that they can't be in pain. But hyperarousal can actually be a sign of pain. Many dogs, when they're painful, become more active. These are the dogs that you can't ever seem to wear out. And that's because exercise releases endorphins, which is a temporary pain reliever. It's a nice distraction, and it can ultimately make things much worse. So the management is very much the same. The behavior modification is also very similar. The big difference is that if the dog is not experiencing fear or anxiety, we may be focusing less on emotional change as part of our plan. The focus might be more on arousal levels, where with a dog with an anxiety disorder, we're focusing on arousal levels, stress levels, and the emotional change. Both dogs are working on self-regulation, on building resilience, on secure attachment, on increased agency. Both dogs who are chronically dysregulated will benefit from talking to a veterinarian about behavior medication, because for both, this is a physical health issue. Dogs with hyperarousal concerns can display aggressive behavior, just like a dog with an anxiety disorder can, because both dogs are getting closer and closer and closer to that fight or flight response, or fawn, fidget, freeze. So there are more similarities than there are differences. One of the biggest differences is going to be how heavily we're focusing on emotional change.